Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark, and in this episode, I'm joined by co-host Phil Lindsey.
Arnold Schwarzenegger. We have covered the man here before on the 6M. He's one of the biggest action stars of all time. You can go ahead and make the case he is the biggest action star of all time. Many years from now, when they write the book on the MCU and they cover this time in cinematic history about the amazing films that Marvel has given us, maybe we'll be having different discussions about who's the greatest action star of all time. It's entirely possible, kids. Anything could happen. But I dare say that Arnold will always be in the discussion. And most of the time, you're a Stallone guy or you're an Arnold guy. At least that's how it was when I was growing up. I don't know if that's the case now. I think people appreciate both these guys' body of work pretty much and show them the respect they deserve, because both these guys deserve respect. They, multi-million-dollar franchises between the two of them. And that's what we're talking about here today with the Terminator franchise. And man, there's a lot to get into here today, because today we're covering T2, Terminator 2, also known as Judgment Day. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, 1991 American science fiction film directed by James Cameron. You guessed it. It is a sequel to 1984's original Terminator film, and is the second installment in the Terminator franchise, which includes a whole bunch of installments that follow that probably should never have been made. We'll get into that here today too, kids. The story was written by James Cameron and William Wisher. It was actually distributed by TriStar Pictures, is a Carlco Pictures production company, are the guys behind it. The complete running time was 137 minutes. It was released in the United States on July 3rd, 1991. Yes, it's been that long. The budget was around $94 to $102 million for a lot of good reasons that we'll get in here today as well. And the box office, kids, it made a little bit of money, is around $521 million. And that is your lowdown for Terminator 2 Judgment Day. Phil, I will tell you this as we kick off here. The great John Moxley said in his book that he believes that the Terminator franchise should have ended with T2. He doesn't understand why we had to go make all these other films. Doesn't make any sense. This movie ends perfectly, wraps up the story. Everything's fixed in the end. We done fixed it. Everything's fine. So I'm not saying I'm fast forwarding to the end, but I'm going to hit you with a two-part introductory question. Number one, how long has it been since you've seen T2? And number two, is John Moxley correct?
I haven't seen T2 in years, but he's absolutely correct. I feel like Terminator 2 is one of the greatest sequels of all time. So much so that I feel like there is a large percentage of people that probably couldn't even tell you the plot of the first Terminator movie. But their only recognition of the Terminator franchise is the second movie. It's just like there are so many people that when they think of Back to the Future, they think of the second movie. And so I feel like you didn't need to do anything else after Terminator 2. I feel like this was a perfect way to end it. But of course, when money is made, companies have to figure out a way to make more money. So of course there'd be another Terminator.
We just had a massive conversation about this off mic before the show started. It's only fitting we segued there.
Look, listen, when you think of anything that has been done perfectly and it made a lot of money, a corporation is not looking at the artistic value of it or yeah, that's a good way to wrap it up. No, this made a lot of money. How can we make more? Look at Matrix. Did we need more Matrix movies? No.
God, no. God, no.
How can we, Warner Brothers, make more money off the Matrix franchise?
Yeah. Dude, I worked for a company for years whose motto was, if it ain't broke, break it. I mean, that's kind of their mantra for years. And everybody saw it. We all knew it. We just could look at each other and say, yeah, they went and done it again. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, this is, and there's so much that you could have done with the characters. This is the ending to the franchise, Phil. If this had been movie number 4, this would have been okay. It was a 4-parter, or if it was a trilogy, this was a trilogy, a 3-parter. And this is how you wrap up this story. It's perfect. Like, yeah, imagine, yeah, dude. Like, yeah, I think I'm agreeing with John Moxley here. This should have been the end of it.
Yeah.
Did you see anything after T2, by the way? Have you watched any of the other sequels?
I've seen the third Terminator movie.
Mhm.
I'm drawing a blank on what the premise of it is, but I remember that it did not age very well. I remember the other Terminator in the movie was pretty cool. It was kind of like a mix of the T1000 and the original model,
Mm,
the TX. That was the name of it, right?
mm.
Um, and yeah, it was cool things about the movie, but didn't need to be made. Yeah, I think at that point Arnold was older, and some of the stuff just didn't land the same. Um, yeah, it just yeah, I don't remember many great things about Terminator 3. Um, I haven't seen the latest one, but I've seen people speak very highly of it.
Mm.
Uh, Dark Fate, is that the name of it?
Yes, Dark Fate.
Yeah, I've heard people speak very highly of Dark Fate. I haven't seen it though. I've seen Salvation. It isn't very good.
Mm.
I don't. I think that's when I tapped out after Salvation. And I used to watch the Sarah Connor's Chronicles on Fox. Pretty good show. But did we really need it? Probably not.
And for the record, kids, there have been 6 Terminator films. 4 more, arguably, than we needed. I don't get that at all. Where does this rank for you personally? Like we've done True Lies here on the show. I'm sure this won't be the last Arnold film that we cover. Where does this rank for you personally? Maybe not in terms of action films, but maybe for Arnold films. Like, is this your favorite?
Uh, it's definitely in the top 5 for what it did for him. Um, how influential it was. It's definitely one of the biggest movies of his career. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite though. And I don't think it's because it's not a great movie. Of course, it's a great movie. But when I say like Arnold giving like a well-rounded performance, um, I think that he's pretty stiff in the movie because he's supposed to be because he's a robot,
Mm,
and he doesn't get a chance to show you that he can actually act. And I think he's given better performances.
mm,
I think that this movie does what it's supposed to do. It's nonstop action, and the rest of the cast does the legwork and acting. Um, and I mean, that's not to say that Arnold did a bad job acting here. I just think that he's given better performances in action movies.
I still think for me, I think True Lies is my favorite Arnold film. I just can't.
Yeah, True Lies ranks pretty high for me. I
Yeah.
was a big fan of Total Recall growing up as well.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, I mean Terminator 2, you have to rank it in his top 5 of all his movies because it's one of his most successful.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like we're not talking about Arnold as an action star without this movie.
Agreed. Agreed. Because part one, he was still new to this country, and I don't even think this. I don't. If I remember correctly, I don't think studio even wanted Arnold for part one. I think they wanted somebody else, if I'm remembering right.
Hmm.
And I think James Cameron was one that said, "No, we have to do this." He and James Cameron have had quite the run together as well. Both Terminator films, True Lies. Cameron did not do T3, did he? I want to
I don't
say,
know. He
yeah,
did
I'm not
not
sure.
direct it.
There you go.
It's directed by Jonathan Mostow.
Don't know if I'm familiar with his work. T2 kids, according to the Rotten Tomatoes folks, is an average of 93% on the tomato meter with an audience score of 95%. So it still very much holds up. It's still great reviews all across the board, fans and critics alike. Pretty cool to see that for me personally, because I do very much enjoy this film. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed this film and how many times I've actually seen this movie until today in preparation for this, because it's been a while since I've seen it. Honestly, it's not exactly in my film rotation. I don't know why. I mean, it should be. It's good. Um, so there are some tropes in True Lies. There's tropes in every action film from the 90s. I got to be honest with you, man. Like, unless I'm just suddenly drawing a blank, I didn't really bump up against anything watching this film again. There's a couple minor things for me personally, but like, did you bump into anything watching this movie again?
Plot wise, no, not really. I mean, there's some dated things here just because, you know, 1991 was a long time ago.
Mm,
Um, but other than that, no, not really.
yeah, I think it holds up pretty well. I don't think there's no really no off color jokes here. Some of the language is what it is. But this is rated R, I believe, because it's got the F word, kids. So be ready for that if you goes to watch it, because earmuffs. That's all I can tell you. The violence is pretty much over the top. It's got that great '90s action. Dude, can we talk about the sound of the gunfire and the incendiary rounds? I guess is what he was firing that eventually blew the T-1000 in half. Like the sound. This movie had better have won awards for just the sound alone. Like it just sounds so in your face, man. Like just like what an action movie should sound like.
Yeah, great sound editing, great score.
Mm.
I feel like that's a big part of course, the advancements of this movie is what it did for sound and, of course, what it did for special effects. Um, I mean, which sounds crazy now because when you look at it now, it's like, oh, those effects don't look that great. But that's
Mhm.
because we're used to, 30 years down the line of better effects. But at the time, this was like world changing.
Yeah, and some other things here that this movie manages to do, um, despite the violence and whatnot. I mean, it is what it is. But like, uh, and we'll go ahead and jump into the cast here because I got to talk about her, because we got to talk about the great Linda Hamilton. This movie does something that to this point I don't know that we'd really seen an action movie do, and that's put a woman, on center stage, tough as nails, super bad, just awesome, gun toting, take no prisoners, foul mouthed, you know, kick you square in the teeth. Linda Hamilton brought everything to this role, and I think she broke barriers here. Like, what do you think about Linda Hamilton reprising her role as Sarah Connor?
Yeah, I mean, I think James Cameron did a lot for the genre in terms of what he did with women as main protagonists. When you look at the Aliens franchise, for example, when you look at this franchise, and yeah, I mean, from the first time we see Linda Hamilton in the movie, and she's doing the pull-ups in her room, she just looks like a badass.
Yeah, she does. And kids, if you're familiar with the story here, you know the story of Terminator. Basically, it's a Terminator is sent from the future back in time to kill Sarah Connor before she can give birth to John Connor, who's going to lead the resistance against the Terminators in the future. So when that plan goes awry in the first film, and Evil Arnold sit back and doesn't manage to get the job done, in part two, the Terminators decide to send another one. So the good guys, meaning you know Sarah's son, John Connor, who we're going to talk about here, um, they send another Terminator back, and guess what? It looks just like Arnold, except it's not. It's not Arnold. I mean, it is, but it's not. Like, okay, so Phil, when this movie came out, Arnold was a box office smash. He was not a box office smash in the first one, so he could be the heavy, but he's not going to be the heavy here. So, like, I can remember in '91 when this film was being advertised, they didn't let the cat out of the bag that Arnold was the hero just yet. You had to kind of work to get there. And we'll get there in a moment with the other guy that plays the other Terminator. But what do you think about the way they switched it up here in this film? I mean, does it make sense? Is it too on the nose? Is it like, oh come on? You know what I mean? Like, is it too much or is it okay?
I think it's great because I think it showed how far that Arnold had come in at that point of his career. Like there was no way you were gonna make him the main character in a movie and make him the villain again. Um, no, he's just too marketable at this point. Like now, it made sense to market him as a hero. And I think the face turn was great.
Mm, yeah. Nice, well put. Yes, he is the reprogrammed T800, or sends back a reprogrammed T800. So I guess, Phil, once you put skin on these things, they all kind of look like Arnold. I mean, they don't, but like we've only ever seen 2 Terminators at this point in time, and 2 of them have looked just like Arnold. So that's what you call comic book science. And we're making it work because we love Arnold, and it's fine. Um, but I don't want to. I don't want to zip past Linda Hamilton. Her performance here is great, and like she was the victim in the first film. She was on the run. She's being hunted for a child she was not even pregnant with yet, and the guy that was going to get her pregnant was Kyle Reese, who her son sends back in time. And this is years before Marvel's made us scratch our heads with how time travel was going to work in their universe. But like at a time, I'm like, wait a minute, he sent back his own father, and did he know he was sending back his father? Like, whew. Uh, this film works with Arnold 100% as the hero. But if this were not Linda Hamilton, this would not be the same film. If she were recast, it probably would still have been a hit. But I can't imagine anyone else being Sarah Connor. I mean, she helps make this film what it is, doesn't she?
Yes. The film is definitely not as good without Linda, and that's why I say that in a sense, like you get an idea of how big of a movie star Arnold is in this movie. Um, but he doesn't get to do any of the heavy lifting as an actor. I think he does some good acting here, but I feel like Linda stilled the show in most
Mm.
of the scenes she's in.
Yeah, good call. And we're talking about making sequels and whatnot. The first Terminator had a budget of 6.4 million and made almost $79 million. So a part two is inevitable, kids, is what we're saying. Um, so let's talk about John Connor, the kid that everybody wants dead. They can't wait to get this kid dead, Phil. It's their goal to get this kid dead. Edward Furlong stars as John Connor. Edward Furlong, a kid actor. I'm not going to sit here and give you his history because, to be honest with you, I don't know a lot of his history in terms of things he may have done along the way or whatever. Don't care. It's whatever. But he's still around. Don't know what he's doing right now, to be honest with you. But he was the perfect mix of a tough kid, and also he really wants to see the best in people. Like he makes the T800. He forces this guy, force Arnold not to kill. Like he's not having it. He won't let his mother kill Dyson. I mean, talk to me about Edward Furlong as John Connor here. I mean, he's also another centerpiece of this movie.
Yeah, I think his character arc in the movie is another part of what makes the movie so good. Is that um, when we first see him, he's just kind of like a punk kid, and that's all we kind of think of him immediately is that he's he's a he's a punk kid, and then the more we see him, it's like no, he just wants to be a kid. Like, and I think the reason that we see him acting out early in the movie is because that's all he really wanted to do is just be a kid and do kid things, and you know, like you said, see the best in people and see the best in humanity. Um, and so I think that we get so many different facets of his character later. Um, because he wants to do the right thing. It's not just because again we see him do stuff like stealing money from an ATM early, but at the same time, you know that he does want to do the right thing when given the choice.
Yeah, I think you're right. He still wants to be a kid, 100%. Um, the scenes where he's on the dirt bike and GNR is playing "You Could Be Mine" was used for the film. Still a great song. Um, totally fits Terminator. GNR totally fits Terminator. I mean, back when this movie was released, that GNR was probably the hottest band in the world at that point, I would say. And getting on the soundtrack just amplified their reach across the world. So they fit like a hand in a glove. They were a big Arnold fan. Supposedly he was a big fan of the band. So everything fit 100%. I love the soundtrack here for sure. So we have our trilogy of the main cast. These three work together 100%. They all three have chemistry amongst each other. And I'll circle back around to you, Phil. If these three don't have chemistry together as a trio, this is not the same film. Still would have made money. Still would have probably had four sequels and a TV show, maybe, but it still wouldn't have been the same film. You know what, Phil? Let me take that back. Maybe if they didn't have chemistry, this wouldn't have worked. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think that a part of what works later in the movie, once we set all of our chess pieces on the board, and um, now we know that Arnold's a good guy, and we get Sarah out of jail and everything. It works because they do mesh very well together.
Mm, yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about the second Terminator, the T-1000, Robert Patrick. Um, and again, kids, hindsight 2020, it is what it is. And when you have a place in your heart for an actor in a certain movie, you can only really see him as that guy, I suppose, or as that character. But dude, nobody else plays this role, but him. I mean, that's it. There's nobody else that plays this role but Robert Patrick, right? I mean, he helped make this movie what it was. I mean, who else gets this role but him? Honestly.
Yeah, he's amazing in this. He doesn't do a lot of talking, um, but he's just got the look perfect. Uh he is ice cold throughout the most of the movie.
Mm.
He's just got like this. I don't know. He just does a lot of nonverbal stuff that is just so great. Um, they just looks terrifying the second you see him in the movie. He just has like this like cold stare to him, just like yeah, he's just terrifying, and I think that he is a fantastic villain, one of the best sci-fi villains for my money. Um, he's just great, and I mean, of course, the visuals of the for the T-1000 of the liquid metal made him so much cooler growing up, and just like it was like, oh, that Terminator is cool, but that guy's even cooler because look what he could do. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, I mean, it's not like he was going and doing what Arnold was doing and getting like this assortment of high grade weapons and like doing all this other stuff. He was just like doing crazy stuff like chasing down a car on foot. Like what? Uh yeah, this guy just like again, when I was a kid I thought he was cool, but I also thought he was utterly terrifying. And every time I think of him now, I think of that cameo from Wayne's World that's just still hilarious and
Oh,
also
so
just like
good.
hilarious, but also at the same time, like, yeah, if you see this guy on the street, yeah, you are pretty freaked out because this guy was really scary.
Yeah, because he goes, "Have you seen this boy?" Oh, it's so good. Because you didn't know it was coming. There's so many cool cameos in that film. You just don't know they're coming. um, Patrick undertook a rigorous running regime and practiced breathing only through his nose in order to appear to be a cyborg that could run at high speeds without showing fatigue. He had trained so hard, he was able to get ready for this one. He trained so hard that supposedly he was able to catch Edward Furlong on his dirt bike easily.
Wow.
Dude.
That's what I'm saying. Terrifying.
Yeah, still terrifying. Yeah, yeah. In real life. um,
Yeah,
you
how
could
many
have
how
put
many times has that been spoofed, by the way, him chasing down a car? Of course, it's famously been spoofed by Simpsons.
yeah.
But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, just that scene of him chasing down a car and being dragged around at the back of the car, and then he just rolls off like nothing happened. It's just like doesn't emote at all.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Um, and you could have put anybody here. You could have matched Arnold for size. You could have gave it, I mean, Stallone. Um, um, I don't know, Randy Savage. I'm just thinking of guys at the time who were hot, they were big, physically big, that maybe didn't have to talk all that much because they were machines. I
Yeah.
mean, It's 91. It's before Goldberg's time, but I'm just thinking of people who would have made sense. But instead of going that route, it makes more sense to have the second machine streamlined and to be faster. Like if the
Yeah.
T800 is a Walking Dead zombie, then the T1000 is from 28 days later, and that sucker can run. like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It would make sense that way. There's a yin and yang, right?
Yeah, of course, because that's how technology is. Technology doesn't get bulkier; it gets sleeker, and it gets better as it advances. And so, yeah, it made more sense for him to be, smaller, faster, um, and then the liquid metal meant that he could take more damage and be more susceptible to damage. He could do other things like mimic people's voices, like the T800, but now he can also mimic people's appearance as well. So yeah, it made sense.
And to that point, Cameron's initial idea had Skynet and the Resistance both sending back a T800, both played by Arnold, into the past. One to kill John and the other one to protect him. But Wisher, who wrote the story along with Cameron, believed a fight between two identical Terminators would be boring. The pair considered using a larger Super Terminator, as we just said, but it did not interest them. They decided to adopt an idea Cameron had for the Terminator, a liquid metal Terminator that would look like an average human to contrast with Arnold's large frame. Best idea ever. And supposedly this movie happened in the first place because Arnold and Cameron both, their thought was, this story's not over. There's something else here. Like, I don't know if they could have anticipated going as far as it did, God forbid. But they're right. At the end of part one, if you really think about it, part one's not it. That can't be it. Because, like, who's to say that things don't still go to crap? And by the way, you talked about being scared of Patrick. When I was a kid in 84 and saw the original Terminator, dude, Arnold terrified me. Like at the end when he's all metal and that skull coming down coming right into the camera, dude, I was mortified. Couldn't help it, man. That thing was nightmarish to me as a child. Today, it's freaking awesome and it's iconic. But like at the time, it was, ooh,
Yeah.
can't look at it. We don't want to leave out of the cast, and there's some other folks to talk about. We don't want to leave out the heavy, the second heavy, who doesn't know he's a heavy, Phil. Joe Morton as Miles Dyson. I mean, I thought Dyson just wanted to make vacuum cleaners, and look what happened. Skynet happened. Feel free to use that joke. What do you think about Joe Morton here, man? He's great.
He's good. He's great in the small scenes we see him in. Um, I don't know. Every time I think about this movie, I think about it as a kid, and like I'm just seeing my dad get nearly killed by a woman. I don't think the first thing I would think to be to dive on top of him. Very brave kid.
God, I know, right? I mean, if you're going to go that far, I did kind of bump into John saying, "Hey, you want to go show me your room? Like, your house just got shot up. What are we doing?" That I did kind of bump into that actually.
Yeah, I mean, but it seemed like a very John thing to do to feel like allow this kid to be a kid. He doesn't need to see this.
That's true. That's very true. I'm just thinking of the heat of the moment with that kid say, "Hey, I don't know you. I'm not walking with you in my room. You might be crazy." I don't know.
Yeah, he might. Yeah, I could definitely see the kid going like, "Who are you? What do you mean?"
Yeah. Joe Morton's had a huge career, kids. My first exposure to Joe was in Crossroads. Great in Crossroads. Very, very good. Love that freaking movie. But that was sort of my first, I think, as I said, exposure to him. But he's been in some great films over the years. He was in Speed. He was great in Speed as well. He was a typical police lieutenant, but he was still awesome. Like,
Yeah.
he's been in stuff since then too, man. You're right. He doesn't get a lot to do here. But you know what I loved is that there was never a moment. Like when I first saw this film, I was ready for Miles Dyson because they mentioned him like, oh my God, yeah, let's go get this son of a. But then you see him and you're like, he's not a bad guy. He doesn't know what this is going to become. And when they tell him he's talking about mortified. He's mortified, dude. Like, there's no part of him that I can recall. I don't know what happened after this because I'm hazy on the timeline for a lot of these movies, but because I don't know what happened after T2, honestly. But like, there's no part of him that wants to keep this technology out there. He's willing to destroy everything. His life's work essentially gone in one night. He's okay with that because he knows what the future is. By the way, speaking of what the future is, how did they bring this back for part 3? Do you remember?
I forgot the premise of Terminator 3.
Not that it matters.
But you're absolutely right. I think the fact that you just assume that Miles is just going to be like this evil head of a corporation that doesn't care about human life. And that isn't exactly true. He's just a family man like anybody else, and he just so happened to come across technology that ends up, developing and being the end of humanity. But I think that's kind of the message of the film as well, is that humans are capable of grave mistakes and great bouts of courage and heroics as well.
Yeah, and you know what? I think I did see part 3, or at least part of it, because it had Claire Danes in it.
It did. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't Joe Morton in that Blues Brothers sequel? Is he the fourth guy in that Blues Brothers sequel?
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
Okay, here's a better Joe Morton thing that is actually ironic. He is actually the dad of Cyborg in Justice League movie.
Oh, good point. He is totally. Oh, something else I don't like to talk about. But
yeah,
but
what?
I think the irony was lost on me in that. Dude, did we even point that out when we talked about the film on the 6M?
I don't remember if we did, but yeah, he is. I can't remember Victor Stone's dad's name. Silas. He's Silas Stone in Justice League.
Wow, what a great casting! Like,
yeah, it's great. It is great when you think about everything. When you think about his career, yes, it's great. Probably better than that Blues Brother 2000 reference I made.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
If you would have guessed going from Terminator 2 that you would see this guy singing and dancing in a movie later, no.
I still don't know what you're talking about because I don't talk about it.
Come on, man! He's dancing in scenes with Aretha Franklin, Erykah Badu. Come on.
Hey, I don't have an issue with what he got to do. I'm sure he had a blast. The rest of us didn't, but I'm sure he had a blast.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Again, when you talk about movies that did need a sequel, but there's money to be made, we can't bring back Belushi. But hey, how about that John Goodman guy? He's kind of great. How about this random kid? Let's use him as well.
Yeah, we got John's brother. John's brother's here.
Yeah, let's use John Goodman. John Goodman likes to sing. He sang in a lot of movies. Let's have him here. And here's some random kid and Joe Morton.
Yeah, some random kid. And Dan Aykroyd, who's 30 pounds overweight. Let's get Dan here too.
Yeah, come on, man.
I thought we agreed we weren't going to talk about this.
Blues Brothers 2000, man.
Shut up! I don't even want to hear the title. Even the title's horrible. Are you kidding me?
What a time! By the way, if you haven't seen this movie, no, this movie was not made in 2000.
Oh God!
It just happens to be called Blues Brothers 2000. It was made 2 years before 2000.
I mean, it's maybe the idea was it'll be the year 2000 before anybody can bring themselves to watch it. I don't know. Maybe that's the thought. Because I think like 9 people saw the film. I don't know what it was.
Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you.
moving on from that wretched piece of whatever, back to another wretched piece of whatever. Here's the quick synopsis of T3. As a result of the destruction of Cyberdyne, the Skynet takeover has been postponed, not averted. I don't know how. In an attempt to ensure a victory by the robots, or the robots, I suppose, a new Terminator, the TX, is sent back to terminate the lives of many of John Connor's future lieutenants as possible, including his future wife, Kate, and also John himself. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Kate's father, who is supervising Skynet's development, is also targeted by the termination by the TX after Connor's future self is terminated by a doppelganger of his previous protector. Jeez, I'm getting a headache. Kate reprograms him and sends him back to save them both from the TX. So Connor's future self is terminated by a doppelganger of his previous protector.
Yes.
So the Arnold got him in the end, but not the second Arnold, and not it was the third Arnold. I need a nap. Thank God we're not talking about that film here. Again, Phil, just let this movie die. This should have been it. Why are we still talking about other stuff? It should have ended with this film. Jeez. Let's talk about the plot here. It might make me feel better. Let's talk about the plot of this film. I don't have a whole lot of holes here to exploit or to complain about. Do you? What's not working for you here?
I think it all still works. I don't have any issues with the plot of this.
I don't know that I have an issue, but now that I think about it, wouldn't the future John Connor have already? Oh my God, it's gonna give me a headache. Wouldn't he have already experienced this, or he didn't experience this? I mean, there's a part 3, which means he should have already experienced this. So, like as an adult, he would know that a dude that looks like Arnold comes back in time to save him. So he's got to be the one to send him. Yeah, this makes me sick. Makes me want to take a nap.
Well, yeah. When you look at the time travel stuff from the first movie, for example,
Yeah.
The guy that comes back to save Sarah in the first movie ends up being John Connor's father,
Mm-hmm.
but he dies in the past. So
No.
he doesn't go back to the future, but he does help birth John Connor. But John Connor existed anyway before he went back. So how?
Whoa.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Or the events of this movie, for example, Skynet still exists because of the chip from the T-800 that came back in the first movie in the arm. But Skynet already existed anyway. Time travel.
Yeah. Hey, listen, if nothing else, wouldn't the future John Connor have sent something back with this T-800 that would maybe not have his mom all scared? Like, hey, this is not the same guy that tried to kill you. Like, I don't know. Like,
Maybe put a different face on him, you know?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Different face. So she's not quite as traumatized. Because, man, she's traumatized in this movie. They got her locked up in a mental hospital, man. And she's like completely off the rails. She stabbed her doctor in the knee, or her therapist, whatever he is. They talk about that. The orderlies are not well behaved, Phil. Like the dude that licks her face.
That creepy scene.
The face licker. You got to watch those orderlies, kids. They're face lickers out there. You got to watch them. What are crazy face lickers up in here? I don't get that. Yeah, I don't. There's not a whole lot. That's the only real thing that I kind of bump into. The fact is, the future still happens. I guess. Okay, so he's all right. I'm going to try to dig here. So he sends him back, but nothing changes. He looks around. He's like, "Hey, we're all still here, and everything's still burned to the ground. like a DC movie. Everything's on fire. So like, this didn't work. Let's do it again. Right? Isn't that what we're
Well,
led to believe?
well, you can look at it this way: that time travel, because when you go back and change the time, you can't change the future. That's what Marvel movies taught me. You can't change the future. It just creates a new timeline.
Hmm.
And so you could say that um, by going back and changing things after the first movie, it just created a new timeline going forward where Skynet existed in a different way because basically Skynet was going to exist. It was inevitable, regardless of what they went back to do to change it. Skynet still existed because uh, the T-800 came back in the first movie, and his chip was found, and the arm was found. The the parenting thing is just still kind of like, doesn't he know that he's his son when he comes back then?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I don't know. Weird. But I don't know. It yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of a paradox for me but that's from the first movie. That's not on the fault of the second movie. It's just always been one of those things when I go back and look at the first movie. It's like, wait a minute. If he's his dad, but wait a minute, he's dead. So he's not going back to the future.
Oh, where's Doc Brown when you need him? I'm just saying.
I'm telling you, Hulk, time travel.
um, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is why we should never invent it. Because if you think it's weird to talk about and try to figure out, try to actually do it in real life. I bet it would be a dude. Can you wrap your head around the amazing cataclysmic disaster that would befall mankind if we were to develop time travel technology? Any of us. Can you imagine how bad we'd F all that up? Right?
Listen,
Like the world would be gone within a matter of minutes, wouldn't it? Jeez.
quick anecdote. I immediately thought of time travel this morning,
Oh,
because while watching this movie, matter of fact, I got an email this morning from the Illinois lottery, and it said you won, right? And so you know where it's going. I'm like, I won, and I of course went and checked my ticket. I won $30,
hey.
because I matched on three numbers. I believe the numbers were 7, 15, no, 7, 14, 13, 15, 18, and 9. My numbers were 7, 14, 15, 6, and 30.
Ah.
So I was actually three numbers off of being a millionaire.
Ooh.
And if I had time travel, I would have said, "Hey, don't put your birth date on here. Put your sister's birth date on here because then you get 9 and you get 13. You would have matched on 5 numbers, not 3."
Ooh. So what you're saying to me is time travel would have came in handy.
It would have, but I don't know. I don't know how different I would be if I was rich in my late 30s as opposed to how different I would be just now, just still as an average guy in my 30s. But then again, I would figure that most people um, that are horrible when they're rich are people that have always been rich their entire lives. That's a different conversation.
I mean, honestly, I think money for a lot of people turns them into arrogant, arrogant jerks who throw cash around. They're entitled. They expect the best of everything. They're complete, d bags to everybody. So, like, I guess if I strike it rich, nothing will really change. That's supposed to be a joke. Everybody relax. I'm not really that bad,
Yeah,
despite what my enemies say, and my enemies are many, Phil.
yeah, I mean, I feel like money kind of exposes people for who they really
That's
are
fair.
at sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah. So maybe if I had time travel, I would go back in time and tell myself, no, don't put your own birth date on here.
You know what my number one thing would be, since we're talking about time travel? My number one thing to do if I could time travel. I mean, there's some family stuff that I would love to go fix and whatever. I mean, obviously, the deep emotional stuff. Yeah, everybody has something. But I would love to go see bands in their prime in concert. Like,
Oh, of course.
oh my God.
Yeah,
How cool would that be?
I mean, going to see Michael Jackson live,
Mm.
because I've never seen him. Going to see Hendrix live, like being at Woodstock for Hendrix, or like
Yeah.
just like being here for like the Beatles, one of the Beatles' last performance all together. Yeah, that'd be cool. Going back and being there for something like Okada versus Omega 3 or something in the dome.
Mm.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Being in Utah when Michael takes that final shot. Or heck, for any of his rings. For any of his rings, I would love to have been there. Like, there's any number of things I would love to have been in the building for. But then, then because I'm such a nerd, the other part of my brain says, yeah, but that ticket that you got, whose ticket did you take, Tom? And how did you change that person's life by that person not having a chance to be at that game or at that concert? What happened to them after that? Like, how many lives did that person touch that maybe they didn't touch because instead of being at the game, they got hit by a bus and got killed? Like,
I don't know, some weird butterfly effect, I
yeah,
guess, but you
yeah,
know, I don't know. That's why, I don't know if I would try and go back and fix anything that's too far away. That ticket thing was 2 days ago.
true.
Just want to go back 2 days. That's
Just
hard.
2 days. Not back in time to stop Miles Dyson for sure. Skynet's a joke, right? Like it's a running gag. Like the 1997 date was a running joke when it actually happened, and then like 2029 is the next date here, because 2029 is when they send the machines back to begin with, or from 2029 they send back. So I'm sure we'll all be talking about that date as well, just like we were talking about the date that the DeLorean came forward in time in part two, I guess it was, of Back to the Future. So it's always going to be those nerdy conversations, which makes sense. Here's a little tidbit for you. Edward Furlong, apparently this movie took a long time to make, and Edward Furlong hit a growth spurt. He is younger in the desert scene than in other scenes, and his voice begins to break and had to be pitch adjusted in post production. And he'd also grown taller over the months. For one scene shot late in the production schedule, he had to stand in a hole on the ground in order to maintain continuity and height difference with Linda Hamilton.
Didn't know that.
That's fun stuff. Linda, and did you know that Linda has a twin sister?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Leslie Hamilton Guerin. Sister. So, you have a twin sister. Yeah. And guess what? Phil looks just like her. Who would have thunk it? They were actually both used in the film, which is cool. She was used as a double in the scenes involving the two Sarah Connors. For example, when the T-1000 was imitating her, and in a scene not in the theatrical release but on the DVD as a mirror image of Linda. This is the only Terminator film to win or be nominated for an Oscar. It won 4 out of the 6 it was nominated for. Did you know it won Oscars?
No, I didn't know that.
Yikes. I can't say that I knew that either. I would guess cinematography would be one. I would guess that special effects would possibly be another. Yes, it did indeed win awards at the 64th Academy Awards. Best makeup, Stan Winston was on this film also. Phil, big shout out to Stan Winston, a legend in his field. Best sound, as we suggested before, best sound editing or best sound effects editing, and best visual effects. It was nominated for best cinematography, best film editing. It was the first film to win an Academy Award when its predecessor had not been nominated. It received 6 awards at the 92 MTV Movie Awards. Well, that's all I need to Phil to know that it won. Why is that listed in any film's biography at all? Have you ever cared about MTV Movie Awards? Be honest with me here.
Not really.
How could you be proud of that? I guess is what I'm asking. I just don't understand how anybody could be proud of that. Hey, I won an MTV Movie Award. Well, I had a cup of coffee this morning. Is this the same thing? Because it feels like it's the same thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know if winning an MTV Movie Award is something to put on your resume. I don't know why anybody's proud of that at all. There's a lot of other stuff about this film, kids. A lot of other little trivia bits. We're not going to get to all of them here today. Um, Supposedly, I didn't know this. Linda Hamilton suffered permanent hearing loss in one ear, or permanent hearing damage, I should say, during the elevator shootout because she did not replace her earplugs after removing them between takes.
Oh no.
Yeah, got to wear those plugs, Phil. It's important. For the LA River sequence, Arnold was in pain because he could not wear a glove while cocking the gun, so his fingers would get stuck in the mechanism. He tore the skin from his fingers and had many times before he mastered it, and he frequently hit Edward Furlong with the gun while doing it, one time almost knocking the young actor out. He had to achieve all this while trying to act and control a Harley at the same time as James Cameron told him where to look. He could not dart his eyes either because it would have ruined the shot. Shooting the gates also took weeks of practice because he had to also act cool while doing it.
Of course.
I don't think we've talked enough about how freaking cool Arnold looks in this movie, dude. When he goes in that biker bar, much in the same way as part one when he's naked and he's trying to find some clothes to wear. Like that scene's been ripped off when WWE did their thing that time and they were ripping that off. Arnold was actually there and was part of the whole deal because he's a big wrestling fan too. But it just so happened there's a biker of the same height whose clothes will fit him, right? Dude, he looks so freaking cool. That bike where he just took the shotgun and put it down the side of the bike like it's a he's getting on a horse like he's a big cybernetic cowboy. I mean, which Terminator is the coolest? The 800 or the 1000?
I mean, I think the T1000 is the coolest, but I just think Arnold's Arnold, man, and I think we connect with Arnold not just as Arnold the movie star, but in
Yeah.
character. He's definitely cool in this movie. I every now when I watch Terminator, it's funny because him going in there and beating up the bikers and killing the guys and taking the clothes. It has been copied several times. It was
Mhm.
copied in Captain Marvel. And I remember there was an outrage online because Carol Danvers beat up that guy and took his clothes. And people were like, oh, how could she do this? And I'm like, oh, you mean like we've seen many male action stars do for decades?
You mean to tell me that, dude? I've not heard this. People had a problem with that.
Yeah, people were mad about this. I remember
Oh
people
my
were like,
god.
"Oh, how could she do this to this guy?" And I'm just like, "But she's supposed to be a hero." And it's like, "No, we've seen several heroes of movies steal somebody's clothes and humiliate them."
Jeez.
This has happened before. What's wrong with you guys?
Yeah, the T1000 is especially cool. The special effects, the time, this stuff. All right. If I'm remembering correctly, this stuff had been seen one time before this film, and I want to say, was it a music video that I'm thinking of that we had seen this technology?
No, I'm not sure. Is
I
it?
could be wrong. This shape shifting technology. It's been used countless times since then, obviously. And today, it's probably the easiest thing in the world to make this technology happen, and it could probably do it. I mean, you could do it right now on your phone, I'm sure. But this film had a 10-month schedule. That's how long it took to film, kids. And about $15 to $17 million of the budget was allocated to the entirety of its special effects, including $5 million for the T1000 alone. $5 million just for the T1000. Industrial Light and Magic were used for special effects, managed the computer generating imagery. Stan Winston, of course, as we said, for the prosthetics and animatronics. So, yeah. This was the beginning of CGI, honestly. This was the beginning of CGI. And it was the first time really that we had seen this. And the risky thing here, Phil, was that there was no backup plan in place. If the CGI did not work as they wanted it to work, if it could not look the way they wanted it to look, they had no backup because they couldn't fix it with practical effects. These were things that they wanted to do, they couldn't do. So, like, if they'd done this film and all were left with the effects and they couldn't pull this off, man, this film maybe would not even have happened.
Quite a gamble.
Yeah.
I mean, it paid off. I think that the T1000 looks cool. Um, like I said, now it looks dated, but then this was innovative.
And here's the fun bit: only 5 minutes total of screen time for the T1000 special effects.
Wow.
Total. And it costs $5 million. That's $1 million per minute, Phil.
It's a lot of money.
A team of 35 people were working on this. The process was so complex that rendering 15 seconds of footage would take up to 10 days. As we said, you can do it on your phone now. It doesn't matter. Man, crazy. Oh, let's don't forget Arnold was also in the GNR video. We didn't mention that. He was actually in the video for the for GNR, also for the song "You Can Be Mine." So there you go. Worth mentioning. Carlco's studio executives were nervous for a lot of good reasons, I would say, and concerned with the original budget of 75 million went up to 88 million with more to come. In order to keep the budget down, they proposed to eliminate a few scenes, particularly the opening biker bar scene where the Terminator is introduced. They tried to get Arnold to persuade James Cameron to remove that scene, but Arnold turned them down, saying only a studio guy would cut a scene out like that.
I guess. I mean, but when you're Arnold at that time, you can throw your weight around and say, "No, we're not doing that."
Yeah. I don't know how you remove anything from this film. This film is this a perfect film for what it is in your estimation?
Yeah, I think it does everything it's supposed to. There are parts of it that, like I said, feel a little dated now. Um, there are parts of it that feel, I don't know. I don't know if I would say they don't fit, but just certain stuff like the whole dream sequence where she's watching the kids play in that park, and then we see like the whole uh nuclear explosion and stuff. That stuff is just kind of like, all right, did we need that? But it is important to the stakes of the movie, like to know what they're trying to thwart. And it is important to note just how much this has affected Sarah Connor's since the first movie.
The stakes, that's a good point. Yeah, we got to know what's really at stake here. Man, that scene, not needed, but frightening and amazing at the same time.
Yeah, I guess it's a good callback to the opening credits where we see all of that playground stuff on fire. Which I guess without that, it's just like, hey, what is the context of this? Just like a random playground on fire.
Yeah, because I think it maybe drives the point home that we're not just talking about a bunch of beefy looking dudes and a girl and her kid. We're talking about families. We're talking about innocent children that didn't do anything wrong, that didn't deserve this. We're talking about humanity being wiped out. Because when it's like, was it how many people that she says in the opening intro were wiped out because of this?
Oh, I don't remember the exact number.
It was was it 3 billion or something like that? How many people?
Oof.
Crazy. Again, kids, it's just reminding you of what's at stake here. I think that's very well put. Yeah, you know what? For me, this is a perfect film. I don't have a lot of problem with this at all. Honestly, I mean, I could pick it apart, I guess, and talk about whatever, but there's not a lot for me to not like here. I mean, this movie is insanely good. I think it holds up. I don't think there's a lot that you have to correct for today's audience. I don't think, in my opinion, there's not a lot here that's offensive to me. I don't know, but that's one guy's take. Um, I think it's fine. I don't think there's anything like that. It's just a good old fashioned action film when it needs to be. And then when it needs to be intense and deep with the story, it is. I think it does a balancing act quite well. This was the first film, I don't know if I knew this, to break $300 million at the international box office.
No, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, here's something else that's good. Michael Biehn, who played Kyle Reese in the first movie, was going to play the T-1000 in this movie.
Oh, that would have had an interesting wrinkle because
Wouldn't it?
you'd had it would have been harder for Sarah to deal with the guy that came back to save you in the first movie is now the villain, and the guy that came back to kill you is now the hero. That would have been interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it was considered way too confusing for viewers, which I would have to say they're totally right. And by the way, kids, don't anybody take anything away from Michael Biehn. He's a really good actor.
Yeah, he could have. It would have gave Arnold a chance to to give the Michael Rooker line from Guardians 2. He may be your father, but ain't your real daddy.
Well, yeah, he may yeah. Maybe your father, but he ain't your daddy. Yeah, that's good. Oh, that movie makes me cry when that happens. Don't even make me talk about that.
Yeah, that would have been perfect. And now, well, it wouldn't have worked because, of course, that movie wasn't made in 1991.
True.
But no, look, that would have been a great time travel thing for somebody to go back in time to give Arnold that character note if they did that. For him to do it in the Arnold voice and say it the same way. It would have been hilarious. Then everybody would think that the Guardian sign was a Terminator reference.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I missed Arnold saying, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all." That would have been fun too. You know what's great about Arnold is that Arnold has no problem poking fun at himself. He doesn't care. He's done comedy, some of which he had no business doing. Let's be real. But
You
he's
didn't
okay
enjoy
with
Kindergarten Cop? Who is your father and what does he do?
it. I like when he's holding the kid up in the air and he just drops him. That is pretty
Oh,
freaking funny.
oh, when he picks him up and he's like, "Are you eating everyone's lunches?
Yeah.
Stop it!"
You made me go back and watch this film now.
Yeah, no, look, Kindergarten Cop is great. It shouldn't be as good as it is, but it's great.
Yeah.
He's in several comedies that shouldn't be as funny as they are, but he's Arnold, man. There's a charm to Arnold that you want to like things that he's in, even if they're not good. I think that's why so many of us have made the Mr. Freeze jokes for so long, is
Yeah.
because it's so terrible, but it's Arnold and you want to like it.
And he may be one of the few Republicans that doesn't make you want to go stab yourself in the head. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know. Maybe he makes some people want to do it, but
Oh my
he's good
God.
with me. So
Do you remember when he was governor and they were doing all of the ads to try and get tourists to come to California, and he would just be at the beginning and saying, "This is California."
yes, I remember him on the campaign trail, and he was in this crowd of people with that trademark smile, and there was a throng of people, and I'm thinking, man, you know, his security said you can't go out there. Like, we can't do anything for you if someone's got a weapon, right? But like, he's physically surrounded by people, and his people are trying to, get in between. They really can't. He's shaking hands, dude. Someone throws an egg at him. Like, who throws a shoe? Honestly, but like, someone threw an egg at him. I think it was an egg. It pops him on the side of the head. You know what he does? And it got all over his jacket. He takes his suit jacket off in the middle of the crowd, and he keeps on going. He doesn't even blink.
I don't know, man. Again, there's just a charm to Arnold. You just want to like him.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that Jeff Loeb story he tells about Arnold?
I don't know if I know this.
Uh, Jeff Jeff worked on something with him, and so he went to his office like years later. He comes in and he goes, "Mr. Loeb, it's good to see you again. Where have you been? Clearly not in the gym."
Oh, that's good. Oh, can't be fat around Arnold. That's not happening.
No.
I like that. Dude, you just riffed on his voice for like 2 minutes. That is one of the things he'll always be known for, is that voice, and how, they ripped on him on SNL and did the pump you up bit with Nealon and Dana Carvey. And he appears on the show as himself and is completely into it and loves it and thought it was hilarious. I'm like, this guy deserves all the awards, man.
It's part of his trademark. Him just doing the thumbs up all the time. It's part of his trademark.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. I mean, I we've talked about this before here on the show. I think the legends are the ones who just don't take themselves too seriously. Like Keanu Reeves does not take himself seriously. Brad Pitt, nah, it ain't happening. There's a lot of guys who just don't, like Denzel. For as classy as Denzel is, there's that great soundbite of him. I'm sure you've seen it, that table full of like distinguished actors. And he's talking about how he's just an actor. Like, relax, like, get over yourselves. Who cares? This is what I do for a job. This is a job.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say the Jamie Foxx clip.
Oh, no.
Jamie Foxx clip where he's like, "Listen, I'm from around the way. I'm leaving with something. I'm leaving with something."
Oh, Lord. But like, that's the thing. Like, just don't take, I don't know. And like, some of the talk going on lately, you and I have discussed it here too, is about certain directors, namely the guy that did this movie. Well, movie stars. There's no blah blah. Shut up, man. There's plenty of movie stars throughout the history of this genre, or like the history of film, who are not really good people. Who, you know what I mean? Who carried themselves a certain way, who looked down their nose at other people, who were notoriously hard to work with, like died because they were alcoholics or because they did something or whatever. Not really good people. Like, it is just a movie. You know what I mean? That, I think that's why guys like Arnold. I think that's one of the reasons why he's loved as much as he is.
Um, yeah, and I mean, for all we know, Arnold might not be a great person,
Hmm.
but again, he just has this charm to him that you just want to like him. When he became a dad and he had like the dad bod, it's like it's Arnold. He's still Arnold, man. You just want to like him, man. There are so many guys that are like that are just like, I don't want to say meatheads, but I like, even when you think of Jesse Ventura and when you watch Jesse Ventura talk sometimes, you just want to like him.
Yeah, he's crazy.
Yeah, he's absolutely nuts. He sounds nuts.
Yeah.
But he just has like this. He just has something about him where you just want to like him. That clip of him on Jericho's podcast is one of the funniest things I've ever heard. By the way,
Oh my God, I've listened to that.
I've listened to it countless times and laughed at it. Just the placement of that ad at the end is just one of the funniest things I've ever heard.
Oh wow. So yeah, again, I don't know how you top this. I just don't know how you top this. And I'm gonna circle back and wind this up with, or wind this down with, I don't know why you move forward except to make money. Like, and let's don't worry about the fact that this thing ended perfectly. Like, I just don't understand the point of it all, but it makes me want to go give T3 a shot because I barely remember this, and I'm more curious about the one that was 2019. Was it Dark Fate?
The latest one, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of me does want to check it out and see why people liked it so much, but I just never gave it a chance. I just don't remember anything from those last three Terminator movies. Like Salvation's the one with Christian Bale in it, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I cannot for the life of me remember the premise of that movie. I just remember Christian Bale's in it. I remember all the trailers for it had Bale giving like this triumphant speech, but that's all I remember.
Yeah. There's so many parts of this movie, dude, that's like they were just so well done. I mean, I know we're winding down, but like the beginning shots of them in the hallway, dude, that was handled so well because you could have been convinced that the Robert Patrick character was not a Terminator, that he was one of the Resistance because he appears more human. Like the
Yes.
way he, you know what I mean? Like remember the way he talks to the foster parents, it's very conversational.
Yeah, and he's a police officer. You're trained to trust the police
True.
because it's like he's a police officer, and then on the other end you have this like big, muscular, biker guy dressed in all black and leather.
And when he took the cop car, he hits the cop in the gut. He just punches him, and the guy, it knocks the guy out. Like
Yeah.
we didn't see him kill the guy. Meanwhile, Arnold's in the bar to take clothes, and he throws the guy on the grill. He's like stabbing people and stuff, and you're like, wow, like that he must be the villain again.
Well, yeah. Now that I think about it, do we ever see him kill a cop in this movie?
No.
Because the other cop that was in the helicopter, he just told him to get out.
Yep.
He didn't kill him.
No. But
I
then when
never
that
thought
scene
about that.
happened, I'm like, where'd he jump to, by the way?
Well, when it zooms out, we see that the helicopter is close enough to the ground that he could
Yeah.
just land on the ground. But yeah, I never thought about that. He doesn't ever kill a cop in this. Even when he steals that motorcycle, we don't see what happens to that cop. He just says "nice bike."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
yeah, you're
never,
right.
I never thought about that. Um, Maybe it was part of him trying to keep his disguise. I don't know. That
Yeah.
would fit that the upgrade of the T 800 is more decisive with his kills because
Mm.
he understands that he can't just kill anybody to keep his cover. If he starts killing cops, then the cops are going to start looking for him. He's a very
Ooh.
specific guy, and he looks very distinct. Nobody else in the movie looks like him, and so instead of Arnold's face being all over television, now this guy that's a cop killer is all over television. I never thought about that.
That's actually really well done. And the fact, he could shapeshift to anybody, but he kept going back to that form in the uniform, which means maybe he had to.
Yeah, which I don't want to say it doesn't age well, but his death is so unintentionally funny sometimes when I see it now. He's
Yeah.
shape shifting back into all the people he was originally in the movie, and he's doing like that screech like a dinosaur. Um, it's so unintentionally funny now. Yeah, there's other things that are funny to me, like stereotypical '90s kid that John hangs out with early in the movie.
Yeah.
What is I don't even remember his name, but he kind of reminds me of Tom Hanks' friend in Big. He even looks similar to him, just with a mullet.
Yeah, he's got a mullet. Yeah, for sure. The shape-shifting stuff is great because he can look like anybody. I love when Arnold's explaining this to John and he's telling him that he can't form complex machines. If this Terminator could form complex machines, the good guys ain't winning in this film, Phil. It's over.
Well, yeah, that's why the I forgot that fast. What is the name of the upgrade from the TX in Terminator 3? That one can mimic complex machines. So
Hmm.
she can do the liquid metal and she can mimic other machines as well. And she is like handling Arnold in the third movie.
Right. Well, that's good stuff. Highest rated, was it most successful R-rated film of all time? Made the most money, which is effing insane. I didn't see that coming. Despite the film's R rating, numerous children's toys. Because man, I just remember that Kevin Smith bit about the Superman Lives movie where he's like, we got to make toys off this. That's what he was told. We got to make toys off this.
When you think about all the things that were marketed to us as kids in the '90s, that was not for kids.
Hmm.
And this movie was not for kids,
Mm-mm.
but it was definitely heavily marketed to us. Yeah, I mean, really, when you think of a lot of wrestling in the '90s, that was not for kids as well, but it was
No.
definitely marketed toward kids.
Yeah, and like honestly, man, like I love this movie. Like when it came out, I couldn't wait to see it, and I saw it multiple times in the theater. Saw it multiple times after it came out on VHS. I was already into Guns N' Roses, so it was perfect for me on both fronts. Like couldn't keep me
Yeah,
away from this movie.
yeah, the TX. I forgot. That's what the Terminator in the third movie is called.
Yeah,
TX.
that's right. TX. Yeah. At the end of the day, kids, here's what we can tell you. Arnold has his catchphrases. He did the "I'm back" here. He did a lot of other stuff. He got paid $15 million to do this movie, and his total of seven. He had 700 words of dialogue, which equates to $21,429 per word. So what we're telling you here is, when he says "Hasta la vista, baby," that was $85,716.
A nice little paycheck.
Yeah, I mean that's we talking about making it. Good for him. Hey man, good for him. He came to this country poor. Let's don't forget that. We cannot forget that he came to this country with no money. Like and you always hear the same story. Oh, they told me I wouldn't make it. Blah blah. And you're like, whatever. Dude, you're crazy. You can't. An actor. What have you lost your mind? You can't do this.
Yeah, this guy came here and won multiple bodybuilding competitions, and then became one of the greatest action stars ever.
Yeah,
And not even just action stars, one of the greatest movie stars ever.
of all time, 100% of all time. So next time people tell you can't do something, kids, say "Hasta la vista, baby." I don't know. The final scene with the thumbs up and the liquid metal. Too much?
No, I feel like it's iconic at this point. It is a bit
Mm.
cheesy, but I feel like it's a part of the movie now, and I couldn't picture the movie without it.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I've waffled on that through the years, but I think you're right. I think it's at this point it's iconic. I don't know how you can get upset at it. Crazy to do that. Well, kids, we could spend another hour and a half on this because it's such a fun movie. There is Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which was the event they were trying to stop, and they didn't.
Dun, dun.
Yeah, which means this perfect ending didn't mean crap all to anybody because, again, money, 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 money. On that note, Phil, what is your last word on Terminator 2 Judgment Day?
Don't pay any attention to things like Blues Brothers 2000, or the fact that Judgment Day was not prevented, or the fact that John Connors was killed later in the movie, and it still didn't change anything. Um, this movie is perfect as it is. We didn't need to go any further after this. This is probably, for my money, one of the best sequels ever. Not just one of the best sci-fi sequels, but one of the best sequels in the history of cinema. Um, I feel like there's so many things that this movie influenced. Not just gave us, an iconic performance from Linda Hamilton, but it cemented Arnold Schwarzenegger as a movie star. Um, and it just kind of proved that James Cameron was a proven blockbuster machine. The guy is still shilling out $1 million movies to this day. Sorry, $1 billion movies to this day.
Mhm.
Let me get that right.
$1 billion movies to this day, for sure. Yeah, I agree. Everything you said. It's iconic. It's classic. Only 2 Terminator films happened, kids. I don't know if you know that. As of now, I'm making the decision. Only the first 2, and that was it. Nothing else. Other people may have had good intentions, but you know what they say about the road to hell. Paved with them, evidently. So yeah, you're right. We don't talk about those other films. I'm not going to. You can't make me. But in the meantime, that is Terminator 2, Judgment Day.
Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.